Hello, Philippines, and welcome to the World News Jam here on DCRJ and RJTV. My name is Eric Lecain, and I'm joined, as always, with 𝗡𝗲𝘄𝘀. How are we doing today, 𝗡𝗲𝘄𝘀?
Pretty good, Eric. We're back on Sunday.
We're back on Sunday at 7. Thank you so much for joining us here as we talk about interesting stories going on around the world, some of the things that I have heard this week that I think that you might be interested in. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about first, Lolly, which is the biggest headline in the world right now, comes out of Morocco. They had a 6.8 magnitude earthquake that hit Morocco, and some measured it as even as high as 7 from the Morocco Alert Network. It's a tourist town where this thing centered, Marrakesh. And so far, they believe that 2,012 people have died so far. 2,059 have been injured. 1,404 of those have been injured critically. And this is not the end. They have just started. This just happened on Friday evening, Moroccan time, just past 11, and they still believe that there are people buried under all the rubble, because this is one of those towns that you would think you would see in Morocco, where it has all the very old, buildings made out of clay stones from, thousands of years ago. That's what their tourism is about. And so when that earthquake hit, a lot of those buildings just crumbled.
Yeah, that's very sad, Eric, because, I was watching the news. I mean, when they said, yesterday it was like over 1,000. Now when I woke up this morning, it's over 2,000.
2,000.
And it's getting higher. And I said, oh my God, this is really, that is really sad, because this is happening all over. I mean, when was when was that? The last time they had this type of thing for, I think, over how many years? 100 years or something?
I mean, it's interesting, that the different parts of the world that an earthquake will all of a sudden occur in, I believe. And the fact that with all our science and our instruments and our technology and our satellites, we still can't predict when an earthquake is going to happen.
Yeah, that's why this is really scary, because at least the typhoon, hurricane, you can tell, oh, it's going to be category 1, 2, 3, 4, in the particular area. But earthquake, nobody can tell.
Yeah, they can see it coming, especially, an earthquake of this magnitude. And, Morocco is down there near, it's the country right next to Algiers. I've actually been to Morocco a couple times. It's a country, you come down out of Spain, Costa del Sol, and you take a boat down to Algiers, then you take a bus over to Morocco. But Morocco and Algiers have not been getting along very well. They're having a bit of a border dispute there about some land. But Algiers has offered its condolences for the dead, deepest compassion for the injured, and decided to, since they have completely severed diplomatic ties with Morocco over the Western Sahara, they have decided to open their airspace.
Well, that is good news. I mean, they should. And I mean, anybody, any country, we should come together to help each other, especially this kind of,
especially in times like this.
Yeah.
And there was, of course, at the time, Morocco was filled with tourists.
Yeah.
And when the earthquake hit, everybody ran outside, and the tourists just slept on the street with the people.
Yeah, wow, that is very sad.
The videos that they showed, and they had interviews with the tourists, and they were trying to explain what it was like. And then the fact that, they would run from one place to the other, and then buildings would come down on their head. And they all everybody just ran out in the middle of the street, and that's where they all slept.
Yeah. Yeah.
So right now, the rescuers are out and trying to sift through all of the rubble. Like I said, a lot of these buildings are thousands of years old, and they just crumbled. And they are just sifting through all the debris, trying to find the people that are missing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long they're gonna, rescue some of them if they're still alive. And I don't know, this is one of the things that, one of the scariest thing in that could happen in somebody's life.
I know. I mean, I've been in earthquakes here in Manila, where you're up on the, up on the top of the condo. I'm up in the 20 plus floors in the condo, and the whole building starts to sway back and forth. And it is a very uneasy feeling.
Yeah, I mean, how much more if this thing happened? I hope this really will not happen here during our lifetime.
I know. I mean, it's, I feel bad for saying this, but it is going to happen in Manila according to the experts. But when?
Yeah.
Is it going to happen in next month, next year, or in the next 100 years? They can't tell. They just know that eventually there's probably going to be a big earthquake in Manila, but they can't tell when. And I still am just fascinated by the fact that we cannot predict earthquakes.
Yeah. Nobody can predict.
Now, and you were saying before, hurricanes. Yes, you can see a hurricane coming. You know to leave. People just don't leave.
Yeah.
But you know it's coming. You know what the winds are going to be. I mean, sometimes they can't predict the exact path of a hurricane, or a typhoon, but they know. They know that it's coming. But man, there's nothing you can do about an earthquake. It just happens.
Yeah, that's why we have a lot. Although I hope, especially here in the Philippines, that Filipinos, I attended several earthquake drill.
Yeah, the earthquake drill.
Yeah, which is trying to what do you call this, condition our mind, things that we should do in case this thing happen. But you never know. Sometimes when it's already there, you panic. Most of the people will panic.
When I was in Robinson's Mall when we had an earthquake, and you could feel it. It started, and the Robinson's Mall thing. People screamed and just all ran to the door.
Yeah.
People stepping over each other.
Yes. Yeah.
Nobody followed the earthquake procedure that we've all been learning.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way it's going to go. But hopefully, like I said, hopefully this earthquake that they are predicting for Manila will happen in 200 years.
Yeah.
Not
long in our
after,
lifetime.
Long after we are gone. But speaking of earthquakes, Elon Musk is his own earthquake. I was gonna talk about Elon Musk. I knew that we were going to talk about because he's just been in the news so much. And things just are not going so well these days for Elon Musk, who bought Twitter at $44 billion, something like that. Even though it was valued at something like 22. But some of the issues now we're going to get to the issue that happened last week, but some of the issues just leading up to that. First thing, he unbanned all those people that were supposed to be banned. They were rightly banned from the platform, people who promoted hate speech and violence and lies meant to harm the public. And then he fired everyone that was there to make sure that content like that was not seen by the public. And then he added that verification system, if you remember that. We talked about here on the show, where you pay the $8 and it verifies you. But it didn't work. The only thing it verified was that you paid $8. So I could be, Eddie Van Halen. I just pay my $8, if you know who Eddie Van Halen is. But anyway, advertisers left Twitter in droves because of that, bring down the value of the overpriced Twitter by billions of dollars in just months. He changed the name of Twitter to X.
X, yeah. I mean,
what was the point of that? I still don't know what the point of that was.
Yeah.
For what he had brand recognition for Twitter. I mean, one of the biggest brands ever in the history of it, and he changed it to X for what? Nothing gained. And now when people see the X, what do you think of when you see that X? You think of Elon Musk, who most people don't even like Elon Musk.
Yeah. Remember the word SpaceX or something.
SpaceX. But Twitter, I mean, one of the most recognized social platforms.
For me, I will just retain the name. Retain the name. If you fire those people, just retain the name. I mean, there's already a
Twitter.
name.
Because now, okay, so we had Twitter and we called it tweets. Now it's X. What do you call it now? What do you call the posts? Eats. I don't know. Anyway, so he said that he was going to sue the Anti-Defamation League. These are the people, the people that make sure that when the rights of Jewish people are adhered to. And the reason he was going to sue them because they were saying that he was anti-Jewish. And he first claimed that they were the ones that were responsible for causing Twitter, or X, to be worth half its value, and forcing advertisers to leave Twitter. However, if he were to sue the Anti-Defamation League for saying that he's an anti-Semite, all they would have to do is just point to the many, many anti-Semite posts that are now being allowed on Twitter. Multiple pro-Nazi posts would be coming out, including that post about the Anti-Defamation League turning your children gay. Yeah, so anyway, and of course, the advertisers would have to come to the court because, according to Elon Musk, the reason advertisers are leaving are because the Anti-Defamation League is saying that he's an anti-Semite. So they would have to come into court. So of course that, people are going to, more advertisers are going to leave. What else did he do? He challenged Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook to a fight.
What kind of fight?
An MMA fight. He said, I challenged Mark Zuckerberg to an MMA fight because Mark Zuckerberg is an MMA fighter. He's a jiu-jitsu fighter. I mean, he's a real legitimate jiu-jitsu fighter. And so Elon Musk said, okay, I'll fight you. And everybody's like, this fight will last 30 seconds, if even. Because it's not that, Mark Zuckerberg is a big, strong, he's a professional jiu-jitsu fighter. You can't fight against a jiu-jitsu guy. He's going to roll you down on the floor, and he's going to choke you out, and that's going to be the end. So Elon Musk realized that he made an idiot thing, and so he said, well, I got shoulder surgery coming up, and maybe we should fight in my backyard first, just to see how it goes. And then Mark Zuckerberg said, forget it. I'm not doing this anymore.
It's just like a little boy, fighting.
Stupid. But
yeah, it's a stupid idea.
This isn't even the story. This is not the big story. Is that we found out this week that, now this is a little more serious. Elon Musk, he owns Starlink.
Yes.
A lot of people know about that here in the Philippines because Starlink is now in the Philippines. And it links up remote places on the earth, like, Philippines, which is, some places in the Philippines are very remote and you can't get internet. The problem is with a guy like Musk, he uses that internet to control his subscribers based on his own political views. And how we know this is because what happened this week when we found out that the Ukrainian forces were planning an attack on a Russian warship, and he ordered his engineers to turn off the internet over the Ukraine when he thought that they were going to run these drones into this warship, and they can't run the drones without the internet. So he purposely turned off the internet when Ukraine was planning this attack against Russia.
Oh.
So, anyway,
Well.
this all came out in a biography about Elon Musk that came out this week. And so what Elon Musk said was, well, I was trying to avoid a Pearl Harbor. I was stopping a nuclear war from happening. But, Pearl Harbor, blowing up a Russian ship in the Ukraine. One was a surprise attack by the Japanese in a war, World War II. The other one was, the Russians came into the Ukraine to infiltrate the Ukraine, and they were trying to defend themselves. So the world is like, Elon, come on, man. Don't be doing this stuff. So they came out, so that you can imagine the Ukrainians were not happy.
Of course, because if this is really true that they really plan to, defend themselves for whatever, for any attack. I mean, it's their right. But why will you get involved as a businessman?
What the Ukrainians said was, okay, you thwarted our attack on that Russian ship. Okay, what happened? That Russian ship fired missiles at civilians, killing children and mothers and people. It's just mind-boggling that he would even think of trying to pull something like this off without somebody finding out.
Yeah, I know. But why is it? Why do you think he did that? I mean, what?
You know why? I think that he likes Russia. I think that he adores Putin just like Trump does. I think he adores Trump. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I've gathered from what he has said, and I think that has part of it. I think if he had to pick a winner in the Ukrainian war, I think Elon Musk would pick Russia. And so I think that's sort of why he decided to do that. And his excuse being, well, I stopped nuclear war from happening. Well, first thing, the Russians have been threatening nuclear war from the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't think, shooting this warship was going to make that happen or not happen or anything. But the fact is that by stopping those drones from disabling that warship, they were able to fire multiple missiles on civilian people in the Ukraine. So, if that was your idea, Elon Musk, it backfired.
Yeah, Elon, don't get involved in this thing.
Get involved, Elon. Listen to Lolly Tolentino, Elon.
Yes, listen to me, Elon.
Listen. So speaking of Ukraine, this week the Ukrainians made, they keep making one step forward. Well, for peace anyway, they took a couple steps back this week because if you remember, I think it was 2 weeks ago when _Prigozhin was. Now we don't know for sure, but his helicopter all of a sudden exploded.
Yeah.
He was the guy that decided to initiate the attack on Putin's power. So I think we kind of guessed that his days were numbered. But then later he made a deal with Putin, and he backed down his attack, and they made a deal that he could go to Belarus. And then all of a sudden his jet blew up in the middle of the sky. So the president of the Ukraine is like, well, people want us to make a deal. They want us to make a peace deal. We're not going to make a peace deal with Putin. He's a liar. Look what happened to Prigozhin. He made a deal with Putin, and look what happened to him.
Exactly. So can you trust the guy? That's the thing.
He was saying anyone that makes a deal either ends up in prison or dead.
Wow.
So, this comes as a lot of people are pressuring Ukraine because they've mounted their own counteroffensive. And some world leaders are like, okay, maybe it's time that we negotiate peace now because everybody's got a hand up. You're attacking Russia, or Russia's attacking you. And the European allies and the U.S. are ramping up their support with more weapons, and there's going to be jets in this thing very soon. They're going to be flying these F-1s around, or F-14s around. So I just, Zelensky has said, especially after the alleged killing of Prigozhin, the only negotiation that Zelensky said he will make is a full and unequivocal retreat of the Russian military from the Ukraine. And we know, Lolly, you and I both know, that is not going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Because if that happens, Putin is going to live about 10 minutes.
Oh, yes.
One of the people there are going to put a bullet in the back of his head as soon as he pulls out, because they have spent so much money and so much time and energy, and they've lost half of their borders from this whole thing. So I think that is not going to happen.
I really pray that this war will stop because, we've been affected also economically. The
For
war.
sure.
Yeah,
Look at the gas prices here in the Philippines.
Exactly. Every week, even it's like 50 centavos to a peso or more. Every day, it's been like what? This coming Tuesday, it's going to be the 10 times.
I know.
And I was like, okay, there's no use for us. Don't use car airing anymore. Just walk.
You got to start walking.
Yes.
You gotta start
Save your money.
But speaking of the Ukraine and what they want to be a part of, the G20 is going on right now. The big summit is happening, of all places, in India this week. And if anybody out there, we talk about the G20 summit every year here on the show. I'll make a quick I think because we've talked about some, it's the 20 countries that make up about 85% of the world's economic output and more than 75% of the world's trade. It's about 2/3 of the world's population, and it's all the big nations, the U.S., China, Russia, UK, India, Germany, and the Southeast Asian country, which I still find kind of bizarre, is Indonesia. Because I think they have a lot of people. Yeah, they have a lot of people. But it was really put together back in 1999 after the Asian financial crisis. And then in 2008, when the world had its big financial meltdown, they all came together at a summit to try and see if they could fix it. So, the world wouldn't just completely fall apart. And since then, it's become more than just economic issues. They've added climate change and sustainable energy, some other issues. But usually it's the host country that picks the agenda. And of course, in the last one, the Ukraine was the main focus. Even though Ukraine's not in the G20, but that was the main focus. Like, what are we going to do about the world? Like, we're talking about gas prices. What are we going to do with the world because of this thing? However, India, they don't want to talk about that because, you know, they don't want anybody getting mad at them.
Of course.
Especially some country that starts with R, because they are neutral.
Yeah.
They have been very careful to be neutral through this whole thing. So, you know, India is the most populated country in the world right now.
They're the number one.
Number one. It used to be, of course,
China.
Until recently, when they took over. They're having more babies in China. They are the 5th largest economy, and they are becoming a true player in the world as far as overall development. The Indian Prime Minister is clearly trying to promote his country as a major global power, and making himself as one of the most important leaders, try to get on par.
Oh yeah,
with,
most leaders, they want to be the leader of the world. I mean, they will always try. You know, they will think of something or do something that they could be the we call it in the Philippines bida. I mean, you want to be the star. You want to be the to make it really the. Maybe they want to really be that powerful like U.S. or Russia. Or
I mean, they're sending, ships to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. They just had it like 2 weeks ago.
Just sent a ship to the moon.
Yeah.
So, I guess if I was the leader of India, I'm like,
why
hey,
not?
I got
I'll do the
billions
same.
of people here. I'm sending ships to the moon. I got big tech going on here. I got call centers that nobody can understand what they're saying, but still, they make a lot of money. But, there's some sticky points. China didn't show up.
Yes.
Xi Jinping did not show up. They sent somebody. And of course, Putin did not show up.
Of course.
Yeah. How are they going to guard Putin if he shows up for something like this? Somebody's left. So right now, China is becoming more and more isolated. They're more at odds with more countries. And I think India wants to, I could be wrong, they want to squeeze in there. They want to get in and like, hey, we want to take over what, you guys just relax about China because they're doing their own thing. We want to be in the forefront of the things, and I want this president there. He wants to be the prime minister. He wants to be a leader in the world.
Yeah, very obvious.
So I think that's what this particular summit. I think that's what they're talking a lot about climate change. They're the redoing the World Bank so more people can get access to the World Bank. And some of this kind of stuff involves the Philippines. So we were talking about. But one of the big things, interesting things, was that the climate change issue, because the G20, they are pretty much responsible for about 80% of the world's emissions. And I just wanted to say, because we talk a lot about climate change here on the show, that this week alone, a typhoon struck Hong Kong, leaving widespread flooding and landslides, 6 inches of rain in less than 1 hour.
Yeah.
That's the most rain they've ever recorded in Hong Kong, ever.
Yeah.
In Brazil, a cyclone hit, 40 people so far are dead. The Mediterranean, 18 are dead from a flood. Dropped a year's worth of rain in 24 hours. Greece helicopters sent to rescue people off the rooftops. A Category 5 hurricane, Hurricane Lee, is developing over the Atlantic with winds of 165 miles an hour. It's heading for the U.S., may touch land, who knows. We had a fire in Maui, which 115 people died, but 380 are missing.
Still,
which they think they will never find these people. And scientists are already saying climate change is the reason why this fire happened in Maui.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive wildfire. So
I mean that was one of the worst natural catastrophes I think we have ever seen. But it just goes to show, I mean, they're trying to push this climate change issue because a lot of people are saying that we are just not pushing it right. In the United States right now, it is September, which is when it starts getting kind of chilly outside and fall is coming. There are places in the United States that are registering triple-digit Fahrenheit numbers, over 100 degrees.
Wow.
In September.
September.
And that's just, I mean, it's mind-boggling that that's happening right now. So I'm, that's part of the reason I think that, what's going on at the G20, and it's one of going to be the main subjects in that thing. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it next week when we've heard all the stuff that the outcome of the G20. That hopefully they will finally get together and say, all right, listen, guys, we need to start doing something.
I think they've been talking about the climate change for the longest time. Everybody, every summit, I think they talk about it.
Every
and how come?
summit, and then we're going to do this.
Yeah, but nobody's doing it. I don't know. I don't understand, but.
So they need to get their act together. They need to apologize to the world, just like Jimmy Fallon is apologizing to his employees. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this story or not.
Well.
But, we'll do it really quick, only because of what the subject is. Jimmy Fallon, if you don't know who he is, he's the host of The Tonight Show. Mm-hmm. It's a big show in the United States. One of the most watched shows in TV. It used to be called The Johnny Carson Show. Jay Leno was on it. Conan O'Brien was on it. Jimmy Fallon from Saturday Night Live, he took on it. And a story came out this week that, because Jimmy Fallon's an easygoing, happy-go-lucky, joking guy, that he treats his employees horribly. Like, they don't even know who shows up for work. They call it the good Fallon or the bad Fallon. And they said, some people that, you spend your whole life working to be able to get onto a show like that. And then you get onto that show. And they said, some people have to go see psychiatrists.
Wow.
And there's people that have feelings of suicidal tendencies from working on that show. And so this week, Jimmy Fallon had to come out and apologize. And it's funny how that, these days, but I just, it's one of those things that's interesting, these days how, people in the workplace, that your boss, when I was a kid, if your boss treated you bad, that's it. You just, you deal with it.
Yeah.
And now,
Yeah, I don't understand really. Why is it happening in a workplace like that? It's supposed to be, it's a popular show. And without us knowing that, people are treated not good at all by this guy.
It's a comedy. It's a comedy show.
Yeah, but it's a comedy show.
Let's be funny.
Isn't it the environment should be, a happy environment? People, you are nice to your people. You look forward to go to the to your work because this is a funny show. I don't understand that, Eric. I don't know. And when I read about it, he said he apologized. You know what? Sometimes your apologize is not enough because you already torture the mental thing of the
people love in the United States. We love to cancel people, and I think he started. They came to him and they said, "Listen, man, you got to do something, or you're going to get canceled." And the Tonight Show, man, if people quit watching that show, this show is worth $1 billion. I'm sure he realized that his days were numbered, and so he came out and he apologized.
Well, do you think his apology will be enough? Because
I don't know.
If I'm the one watching this show, because I sympathize with the people, I'm not gonna watch him anymore. People are like that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's what it is. When they realized that, this kind of good, funny, easygoing. Oh, wait a minute, he's mean to his employees. He says horrible stuff, makes people cry in the office. They have a crying room, which people go to cry after he berates them and says, it's you could easily lose millions of viewers.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In a day by a story like this.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to salvage what they can from that show.
Eric, just for the sake of, discussion, isn't it in America that, people are, when they hear something, they always voice out, they always talk. And then what happened to this show? What happened to this, why did they allow it for a long time?
I think that it just, because somebody finally did a story, I think Rolling Stone did a story on it, and that came out that, because it's one thing if 2 people say it, or 3 people say it, but if 40 people say it, and they go back and they talk to previous employees, and they're like, it's a horrible place to work, then I think it becomes a story. And then people are saying, you know what, I thought about suicide. When I would go, I'm like, oh my gosh. And all these people saying that they had to get therapists. That is serious. That is serious already. So that's a little serious. And we don't need that. Just like I don't know how much we need the iPhone 15.
Oh my God, another one, another new one. You need another one, Eric?
What a segue
iPhone
going to our
15?
tech section. So this is the tech section. And so the big tech news this week is the iPhone 15.
Oh my
Sometimes I
goodness.
can't, like, wait a minute. I have to think, what number are we on now?
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, iPhone 15 coming out. Do we need it? Do we need another iPhone? The announcement was prefaced by the fact that there would be a major price change. And I thought, when I saw major price change, that means that they lowered the price. Because it's so expensive. What is it? $60,000 for the lowest, the entry level one? Like $80,000, $100,000 for a freaking iPhone? No, they're raising the price of the
My
phone.
God. And people are, I'm sure people will buy it. And I'm sure you will be one of them.
I'm sure people will buy it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's here we call it a status symbol.
Status symbol.
If you have an expensive, telephone or whatever, status symbol.
I may live in a tree down by the side of the road, but I have an iPhone 15. But anyway, why does the iPhone 15 so expensive?
Tell
and
me.
It has a new feature, which, tell me if you need this, Lolly Tolentino. It has a titanium case.
Okay.
Yes, we definitely need space age. The kind of the same stuff they put on the spaceships that we need. But I mean, it will make it tougher and make it lighter.
You really?
So, there you go. That's something, And if that wasn't something more than we don't need, there is a new periscopic lens on the iPhone 15.
Jesus Christ.
So that will make it on par with some of these Samsung phones that have these super lenses on them. So you can shoot something, 10 times away distance than you are away, and it's sharper.
Maybe if you have business that need that kind of technology or feature, that's okay. But if you are just a regular person, you want to have an iPhone 15 for your status symbol, whatever. I mean,
if you don't trust your girlfriend, you can use your iPhone to zero in on her phone and take a picture of who she's writing. 'Cause it could be,
okay.
So that's
that's Eric's advice for you.
That's a good
Yeah,
that's a good
that's-
reason for it. But one of the big things, Lolly, this will make you change your mind. USB-C.
What does it mean?
So before we had if anybody out there that uses iPhones, we had the lightning cable for so long. So long we had the lightning cable. They're going to switch that to USB-C. Everybody scream and yell and jump up and down. Apple is finally switching their phone to USB-C, so it's the same as their laptop, and cables will not have two different plugs on one plug on one end, one different plug on the different end. Everything is being conformed to USB-C, which will make your pictures load faster from your computer.
Oh my goodness.
Probably like by a split second.
Yeah,
there you go.
like I said, if your business is really, you need that kind of phone. Yeah, I understand. But if you are just, going around and showing off I have a new iPhone 15, and then at the same time you are sometimes run out of load. I understand if you got a plan like me, you can avail of that kind of expensive phone. But if you're just loading by 50 pesos, 100 pesos, you don't need it.
Here's my iPhone. Oh, can I borrow it? I need to send a message. I don't have any load on it.
Yeah.
I spent all my money on the iPhone. I don't have any money left.
Funny.
But it has a new ring silent button on it. The silent button on it is now changed. You can make it anything. You can make it different functions if you want. So, there's a few things that the button thing actually might be okay if you want to hit the button and your camera immediately comes up with your periscopic lens that can shoot 10.
Okay, I'll stick with my phone. I don't want to change to iPhone
I
15.
don't think I have the money yet. So, speaking of interesting things that are coming out soon, Kim Jong-un came out this week with his daughter, which you don't see every day, to celebrate the 75th anniversary of North Korea.
Yep.
North Korea, which theoretically is still at war with South Korea. But this was not your typical anniversary party that Kim Jong-un threw. As you can guess it, he had a paramilitary parade where he brought out all his missiles.
Right.
And everybody, because if you don't clap, you can be taken to jail. So he was out there with all his paramilitary forces and the industrial workers. And they are marched down. They do the march with the thing down, the Kim Il-sung Square, brandishing all the military hardware. This beautiful stuff. And he attended with his daughter, who many believe is named Kim 𝗡𝘄𝘀, because we don't really know what her name is for sure. But the interesting thing was, Russia and China sent delegates
Of course.
to this big parade.
Of course. Best BFF, I call them.
I
They're
mean,
friends.
so, and President Xi wrote a letter, and President Putin, they both sent a letter. Putin wrote that relations between the two countries have invariably developed on the principle of friendship, good neighborliness, and mutual respect. Adding that he believes they will expand the bilateral ties in all respects in a planned way by pooling efforts. This fully conforms with the interests of the people of our two countries and will contribute to the ensuring security and stability in the Korean Peninsula and the Northeast Asia.
Wow, awesome.
So that was Putin's letter to Kim. Xi, not to be outdone, also wrote his country was ready to strengthen the strategic communication, deepen the working level cooperation, and promote the China-North Korea relations. So, but this was not the big news that everybody's talking about out of North Korea this week, because North Korea showed off another weapon, a new weapon that it has, a tactical nuclear attack submarine.
Wow.
Can you imagine that in the hands of Kim Jong-un? Now, so, you think things have gone from worse to bad, or from bad to worse. So the sub's name is Hero Kim Kong OK. Go
What a
figure.
name.
Go
Yeah.
figure. Why is it named that, Lolly?
Why?
I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't find out. I couldn't find out why. Anyway, supposedly it will patrol the waters between the Korean Peninsula and Japan. Kim said the unveiling of the rapid development of the naval forces was his top priority for national defense to meet geopolitical challenges, as well as the recent aggressive attempts on North Korea by his enemies.
Well, it's just saying, giving warning. Isn't it a warning?
I mean, first of all, how does Kim Jong-un get a nuclear submarine?
I know, right?
I mean, is there a surplus? Did he go to the surplus nuclear submarine store? It turns out this is actually a Romeo-class submarine that North Korea acquired from China back in the 70s, and they have retrofitted it to use ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, and they are going to try and put possible nuclear missiles on it. They brought it out this past weekend and fired it. They did some test fires to show it off, and it did a fabulous job just shooting missiles into the ocean.
All right. That is their anniversary, so they need to make it
But there's
memorable.
one more story.
What is that?
One more story. He wore a beige suit. We talk about his dress sometimes. He wore a beige suit with a beige tie and a hat like I have never seen. It was a Panama hat. You ever seen a Panama hat?
No.
Like these
Oh, okay.
really big brim hats that
What does it mean? Does any meaning?
I don't know. It's the
just
same
want to
as
wear-
the name of the submarine. I have no idea.
Okay, yeah. All right, whatever.
Anyway, Kim Jong-un, if you're watching the show, please call us up or leave a comment on the Facebook page. Let us know what was the reason why you wore that giant hat.
Yes.
So speaking of other people that are coming and going, some of the states in the United States, which I find this such an interesting story, some of the states in the United States are suing to have Donald Trump removed from the ballot. So talking about Kim Jong-un's best friends, there's one of his friends who's trying to run for president. He will probably win the nomination of the Republican Party, even though he didn't even show up for the debates, because it looks like no one else is going to catch him. He's like 50 points in front of everybody else. But some of the states are trying to sue to keep him off the ballot.
That's Colorado.
Actually, there's a couple of different ones. New Hampshire is one. Georgia.
Also?
Some people in a couple of different states are trying this. And what they're doing is they're saying that the 14th Amendment, which is part of the Constitution of the United States, says that if you attempt an insurrection or a rebellion against the country, you are disqualified from ever running for president or any other high-end office there. And again, this particular sentence comes from the Civil War. It comes from just after the Civil War. They made this thing to keep Southerners from who were bent on destroying the government, from winning an election. Because at the time, which is what, late 1800s, the North had won the war, and they wanted to keep Southerners from running for office and winning, because they would win because they're in the South, so they would mostly win. So if you tried to have a rebellion or bring down the government, you can't run anymore.
Well, in all honesty, of course, in any country, I think they. I don't know if other country has that kind of provision in their constitution. I think you should not, you should not let somebody run if you already instigated, an insurrection or whatever you call it.
If you're trying to bring down the government, if you're trying to destroy the government of a country,
that's very obvious.
You shouldn't be. And the thing was, at the time, they knew that the Southerners could probably get elected because they would be running in the South, where people were pro-slavery. I mean, that was the whole reason for the Civil War, really, is that they wanted, the North people said, you can't have slavery, and the Southern people are like, we want to keep our slaves. So they fought each other for a long time, killed a whole bunch of people, and finally the North won, but, they may have won the war, but it took decades for all the rules and things. I mean, they weren't going to give up their slaves just like that. So they didn't want anybody promoting that, and so now they're using this law from the 1800s to try and keep Trump off the ballot. And what they're saying, a lot of you are saying, leaving him off the ballot will rob voters of the right to deliver their own verdict on whether Trump should be the president again. But, he was impeached.
Yeah, I mean, he got
on the charge.
And then indictment, how many times
insurrection.
Already? Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why. I don't know. I don't really understand America now. That's all
a lot
I
of us
say.
don't. And I happen to be one. But Trump had. This is the interesting thing: is that he got indicted. He was impeached for insurrection, and then it went to the Senate, and the Senate says, "Hey, listen, you know what? We're not going to kick him out of office. Let's just wait till he's out of office, because he's almost out of office anyway, and then just let the courts deal with it." Well,
here's
the courts are dealing with it.
Yes.
He's been indicted now for just this, for what happened. And what if the courts find him guilty? Does that mean the 14th Amendment from like 1865 is going to kick in? And what is that going to mean for 50%? 50% of the country. Right now, he's polling against Joe Biden at 50%.
Yeah, exactly. So, I will say this again. I don't understand. That's all I can say.
You know what's interesting about the coup attempt in January 6th that we're all talking about, everything, is this week there was a big development. If we remember back when the people were all storming the Capitol and they were saying, hang Mike Pence and all this kind of stuff, there was a group of people that planned for this. They were the ones that kind of organized this whole thing to, they didn't, and all these people that went over there, but they were the ones that were like, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to already be at the Capitol, and then Trump is going to rile everybody up, and he's going to send them over to the Capitol, and then we're going to be the ones to help everybody, to show them how to break in and how to, because we're paramilitary guys. We know what we're doing. And these guys were called the Proud Boys.
Yes.
Sometimes known as the Trump Army, which I think is interesting. But they're a bunch of neo-Nazi, white supremacists, and they're led by a guy named Enrique Tarrio. And this guy, Enrique Tarrio, he's the guy that supposedly, from all the things that the January 6th committee, when they looked into this, he was the guy that kind of did all the behind-the-scenes planning. He how to get guns in, how to use, boats to bring, military weapons across, what they were going to carry, the things they were going to bring into the Capitol, how they were going to do it, what entrances they were going to go into. He had the whole thing planned out. But the funny thing was he was arrested before he could even get there. So he wasn't even there on January 6th.
Yep.
However, he was eventually arrested as one of the ringleaders that tried to start this thing. And he went to court. He was brought into court and charged with seditious conspiracy.
Wow.
And there is a word that you do not hear very much. And he was found guilty of seditious conspiracy. And that sentence for his guilty verdict came down this week.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness.
Yeah.
He got 22 years.
Yeah. I think it's the longest among, I don't know, there were three of them were charged.
You are correct. You are correct. It was the longest one. There was of anyone that's been, and there's been a lot of, there's been over 1,000 people like brought into court of this. It was the longest sentence of anyone involved in the riot. And the judge characterized the defendant as the ultimate leader of the conspiracy. And they originally asked for 33 years.
Wow.
And the judge actually brought it down to 22. And according to the judge, he had used his influence to organize and execute the conspiracy to forcibly stop the peaceful, democratic transfer of power and work to inflame and radicalize untold numbers of followers promoting political violence, which you would think I'm talking about Donald Trump, but this is actually the guy from the Proud Boys. And what you were saying before, you said he wasn't the only one sentenced, and you're right. There was a guy also sentenced for 18 years, 17 years, 15 years, and 10 years.
Yeah.
So this is going to make you think twice about trying to do this again, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is a warning again for all the people out there, when you, I don't know why, because they listen to the president. They believe him. That's why they did this.
They listened to the press. They thought that he's it doesn't matter that he lost the election.
The sad part of this, when I listen to even friends and people that I know, and most of this who thought of this, of course, are former military, because they know they know how to do this. They just need to look for the, let's say, what do you call that? When you there's a building structure that you post. Normally they will ask for it, so they know the interest. So that's why they plan all of this. I mean, they know where to go.
I mean, it's a thing when you put a police officer up against a trained military killer. These guys are Marines.
Yes.
They have been trained to kill people.
Right.
And they're up against the Washington Police Department. So I would tend to say, okay, well, probably the Marine are going to be a little more experienced at this kind of thing than the police department, which is why the police didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to deal with this because they had ropes. They were swinging down from the tops of the thing and going and breaking windows and getting inside.
They're ready. They have the gear, all the gear that they need when they, get inside the building. I was so shocked when I saw the video.
But I think they thought they were going to get away with it because Trump told them to do it. And I think that was their defense. Well, Trump told us to do it. Yes. And it turns out you don't get away with it. I mean, in fact, they got, charged with seditious conspiracy. And if you don't know what that is, originally, here again, that was used again in the U.S. during the Civil War.
Wow.
When the North was victorious over the South, over slavery, there was a law made to arrest any Southerners who might continue to fight the U.S. government after the South had already surrendered. So if the South surrendered and they continued to try and kill people or, kill slaves or whatever, this charge of seditious conspiracy was what they used to arrest these people. And so this is how they were able to get these guys on such, so many years. It wasn't trespassing. If they hadn't got it for trespassing, what did they get? 3 years, 2 years at the most, or attacking a police officer, maybe 5, 7 years, whatever. But seditious conspiracy, they went after him for this. And this is something you just don't hear about. The last time anybody was convicted of seditious conspiracy was 1995, when the blind sheikh, Omar Abdul Raham, and 9 of his followers were convicted for plotting to blow up the UN and the FBI building and 2 tunnels in New York. And the defense, claimed that they were, the same thing that these guys did. They said, well, it's free speech. We can say, that's what this guy was saying. It's like, well, I can say I'm going to, overthrow the government. Well, you can't. It turns out that's seditious conspiracy. And you're going to get 22 years for it.
Wow.
And he wasn't even there. And he got 22 years.
Wow.
But I just, this is, and right now we're looking at all these indictments that are coming down in the middle of an election. You don't think this is going to happen again? I got to feel it. I got to feel it. Lolly, you look at all the people around Trump's circle who have gone to jail. This week, Peter Navarro. Remember back we used to talk about Peter Navarro here on the show?
Yeah.
Because mostly during the COVID time.
Yes.
Because he said all these crazy things about COVID, that, the vaccine will kill you, all these things. It just made my head spin. So he was part of the Trump administration. So, Peter Navarro was one of the guys that was part of the conspiracy to overthrow the government. So he helped plan the whole thing with the fake electors and all that kind of stuff. He was part of that whole thing. And the reason that we know that he was part of that whole thing is because he came on TV and he bragged about it.
Yeah.
So, and we actually talked about, we laughed about the other show when he actually did that. I'm like, he went on TV and he said this. So they said, well, listen, Peter Navarro, you need to come in front of Congress and you need to testify. We need to question you in front of Congress. And he's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not coming in. I don't want to talk in front of Congress. Now, he could have gone in, just pleaded the Fifth, but he's like, I'm not going to do that because, during Trump's time, people just didn't do what Congress said. And you know what? And, Steve Bannon did the same thing. Well, I'm not going. Okay. I'm just not going. You can't do that. Yeah. We've never been able to do that. We've never been able to defy Congress. So Congress is like, hey, you know what? We're going to get you for contempt. So he went to court. In his court, which happened this week, it lasted 2 days. The jury spent an hour and a half, or I think it was 4 hours actually. They said, you're guilty. Because there was of course he was guilty.
Of course.
It did, he was trying to say, well, it's my right to say, it's my freedom of speech. Everybody keeps talking about freedom of speech. But that's not what the court trial was about. That's what the judge said. The judge says, wait a minute, you're not here for that. You're here because you didn't show up.
Yeah.
He could get 2 years in jail.
Wow.
He could get 2 years in jail for this. So we're waiting now. Of course, he's, like Steve Bannon, he appealed it. So I'm sure there's going to be some appeals and so forth. But they're going to lose the appeals because there's no defense, which is the same thing. Now, I want to get your take on this, too. Mark Meadows. We talked about Mark Meadows. He is, Trump's right-hand guy when he was in the White House. And he's under indictment with Trump, with 19 total people in Georgia, which I think is insane. And so it's just crazy that they're doing this. So 19 people under indictment in Georgia, which is state court. They don't like state court because in state court, you have to try it in the city. And the people in the city hate Trump, so they're going to get that jury. But one of the big issues is television.
Right.
Television cameras are allowed in state court. And what's going to happen if they put all these guys like Mark Meadows and Donald Trump and all these guys, Rudy Giuliani, and all this stuff comes out, and it's just going to look horrible for them. And so they want to get this moved into federal court, get it pushed off, into another part of where the jury's going to be a little bit more easygoing and no television cameras. So Mark Meadows went and he said, you know what? I had executive privilege because I did this as part of my job. So it's part of my job, so it needs to be in federal court. Because I planned to overthrow the government, and that was part of my job. I was doing it for the president. So the judge was like, you got to be kidding me. We're not going to let you move this to federal court. And they didn't. I mean, this is big. This is really big. So Mark Meadows is going to be tried in state court.
Yes.
Which means, first thing, the jury pool is going to be a lot of people that are don't tell another like Donald Trump, and we're going to get to see it on television.
Yeah.
Which we were so worried that we wouldn't be able to see it on TV, which is why I didn't want it moved to federal court. But here's the interesting thing about this, is that Donald Trump is doing the same thing. He's taking it to court to say, hey, this needs to be moved from state court to federal court. Because he doesn't want to be seen on television. He's going to have to be there, sitting there like this, and listening to the things they're going to be saying about him. He doesn't want that on television. It's a really bad look. So, and obviously the jury is going to not be pro-Trump for sure, because it's a city. So he has already said that he was going to take this to court. He was going to appeal it and see if he can get this moved to federal court. But Mark Meadows has already lost.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the same judge.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to happen now? So we may very well, in the next couple of months, see Donald Trump sitting in a courtroom and possibly, I mean, he's going to, I could be wrong, but he's going to be found guilty.
Well, you know,
he's going to appeal.
I mean,
he's going to appeal,
definitely, of course, he will try everything, you know, to get to be acquitted or whatever. But I don't think so. I don't know, but you know, there's a law, and it's very clear, even here in the Philippines, that they always say no one is above the law. So, did you understand that, Mr. Trump? No one is above the law. It doesn't matter who you are.
Unless you are a king of a country, in which case you would never be.
That's a different issue.
You would never be in court.
Yeah.
You would just kill everybody in the court.
It's
instead everybody
that's-
beheaded. But
yeah, it's
but this is not that case. But you are correct, 𝗡𝗲𝘄𝘀, that no one is above the law. And right now we're really getting a chance to see that in real time. Unfortunately, in America.
Yeah, but you know, it's okay. You know, there's a CNN here. You know, we can watch. There is a what do you call it? There's a YouTube. I mean, we can watch everything now. So
and I'm sure they're going to have a lot more than 1 hour show when Trump goes on television for his court thing, which we unfortunately do not, because we are at the end of our hour, 𝗡𝗲𝘄𝘀.
Yes.
So we are out of time. So, but thank you everyone for tuning in to see me and Lolly here on the World News Jam talking about interesting stories going on around the world. Please join us again next week. We will talk about even more interesting stories that happen next week. So until then, everybody, please be safe out there. We'll see you next week.
The views and comments of the